My prescription, therefore, is that African countries must borrow with wisdom. And I would have thought myself that under the aegis of the African Union and the African Development Bank, we should have controlled our borrowing, particularly in the area of infrastructure. I see no reason why all our infrastructural borrowing should not be midwifed through the African Development Bank, so that even if we are borrowing from China or borrowing from the Bretton Woods institution, there is an African element in it. I know people will argue that some of these things are bilateral, but it's bilateralism that is killing us. Because when it is bilateral and you have Zambia borrowing from China, then it is not a borrowing of equals. And the Chinese have an agenda which is clear. And I don't blame them, because they are very clear on what they want. It is us who lack clarity. You and me know that when you borrow for infrastructure, these are social investments which take hundreds of years to recoup. So I can't agree with you more that going forward, we must ask ourselves, do we have the ability to pay? And if we don't have the ability to pay, can we have different models? And if we have those models, can we leverage them at either regional level or at continental level? Because if we don't, then we are going to be in trouble. And we have seen already what has happened with Chinese loans in Sri Lanka, where they are saying we are going to manage your ports until we recover. We have seen how they have taken over the mining sector in countries such as Zambia. We have seen how they are building the railways and, of course, the road network that you've talked about. I want you to remember in 1985, Thomas Sankara, when he had just become the president of Burkina Faso, did make a very passionate speech at the the meeting of the OAU, then saying that Africa should now negotiate for the forgiveness of all debts. And the world owes Africa that. If that were to happen, then we start on a clean slate with a population that is a lot more aware now. Then we could ensure that our government spend only in areas that will be beneficial to us. And if we can succeed 7 out of 10 times, then I think we can continue to control our resources. Cut Norway. Norway discovered oil only very recently. Norway, with a population of no more than, I don't think, 11 million, even that may be exaggerated. Norway now has a sovereign fund from oil of $1 trillion. $1 trillion. Efficient management of resources, so that notionally now, a Norwegian who is born has to his or her credit nearly $200,000. You look at your typical African, an African child whose parents have not been born already have debts. First of all, I don't believe in equal distribution of resources. It's unachievable. The communist countries thought it could be achieved. I believe in equitable distribution of resources and provision of basic services. And I think the people that have done this very well are the Scandinavian countries. Look at Scandinavian countries, free education from university, from kindergarten to university, free healthcare system, almost free transportation. Once you provide those basic things, and even the salary differences, if you look at the salary differential in many Scandinavian countries between the highest paid and the lowest paid, is never above 30 percentage points. And I think that that can be achieved. So what one is talking about, and I think is achievable, is to ensure that you provide basic services for free. And I've already said it, and I'm repeating it for special effect. Give me free and quality education from kindergarten to university. Give me free health care. Give me good roads. Give me all these things. Give me good pension. Make sure that disadvantaged people are given opportunities. Give me welfare system, or rather unemployed benefits up to a certain period, and that can be achieved. You, Botswana, don't speak about it. But Botswana at one time was the only African country on the continent with a budget surplus. If it could happen here, why can't it not happen in other parts of the world? If you achieved it before, why can't you achieve it now? And remember, going forward, many people are going to lose jobs in Africa. The more we embrace technology, a job that was being undertaken by 20 people is now going to be undertaken by one computer. How are you going to deal with that situation? So to me, the fourth industrial revolution is something that we should embrace. but ask ourselves, how are we going to behave in the face of the fourth industrial revolution? Yes. How are we going to embrace that technology? I can't agree with you more. And the beauty is that the African Union has actually recognized that. If you look at the 7 pillars that I've mentioned before of the African Agenda 2063, they recognize that you want to create a prosperous Africa where there is peace, where there is transparency, where there is democracy, where there is diversity, where there is strength in the economy. And once that happens, what will happen is that you'll allow free movement of goods and services. You'll harmonize to ensure that there is no tariff and non-tariff barriers. And this is not going to happen within a short period. What has happened recently, for example, in ECOWAS have said we are going to have one currency by the year 2020. They may not actually have a single currency by the year 2020, but the fact that they are thinking about it, they are learning from the European problem that we had with Greece, Spain, and Portugal. Africa has many examples to learn from. So I have no doubt in my mind that if we learn from the mistakes of the European Union, if we learn from the mistakes of other continents, then we can leapfrog some of these stages and ensure that we begin to move in the right direction. Which means, for example, Africa has 33 currencies. In order to move towards a single currency, you've got to deal with macroeconomic issues, you've got to deal with microeconomic issues, and it's going to take not less than 50 years in my estimation. But as long as we are moving in that direction, we will be doing a good thing. When you talk about African Airlines and the free skies, look at the history of Europe and America. We know quite a number of European airlines that collapsed. Look at the Olympics in Greece. Look at BOC in Europe. Look at the Pan Am. So that sometimes we talk as if Africa will be the first continent that will have these failures. Yes. Africa is not. Africa is only visible because it's beginning to move in that direction. But I agree with you that having seen the problems of those other countries, we should not repeat them. We should now learn from them and do the right thing. And I think that voices like yours and many others which are not given the oxygen of publicity are beginning to talk at universities and at different fora. And if the politicians were to listen to these voices and begin to appreciate that in the long term, you may appear to be doing well today, but in the next few years, Malawi is not going to survive by exporting tobacco, because we are banning tobacco everywhere. So we must find something else to do. And once you do that, you will discover that the person who moves from Zimbabwe to Botswana is moving to add value rather than escaping an oppressive economic system. And that will be the beauty, so that we strengthen each other. And in 100, I'm not romantic about African unity, because sometimes we tend to romanticize this thing. It is not to be romanticized. It's not going to take less than 100 years to achieve some of the things that we want. But the fact that we are moving in that direction is a good thing.